On this evening, we celebrate hometown victories and championships won. For there are no weeks off on this edition of Motorsport 101.
I see what he did there. I see what he did there indeed. Welcome back, episode 281, everybody. I'm your host, Ray Harrison. And welcome back to Motorsport 101. And we totally didn't take a week off. Honestly, no, never. It just looks that way by the time we've edited it all together. We didn't have King on a hamster wheel for nothing, furiously editing all these episodes. Isn't that right, King?
Yes, I am. I'm slowly losing my mind one day at a time.
Aren't we all in today's climate? I'll say, aren't we all the way 2020's going right now? Like, you're not alone on this one, King. Like, honestly. Like, we're all just struggling through. Welcome to December, as we record this, by the way, because, God, I was like to call it March the 10th. So, good luck, everybody. RJ, hello, son. How you doing?
Yeah, I think King was busy, just having to make shops at this wonderful New York exclusive phenomenon known as checks notes convenience stores.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Must be a Northeast thing.
Yeah, it just must be a New York City thing. You would never be able to just buy assorted items like toilet paper and M&Ms anywhere else in the world in one store.
But can you also pet cats at the store?
Okay, yeah, you make a good argument. Cam, do you have pets at your store?
I have pets at my house. I don't have them at my store. Our wonderful listeners have probably heard them many a time.
Yeah, actually, no, we haven't because we edited them out in post-production. Lucky us. No wonder King's been losing his mind so much that in recent weeks. Just been editing out.
He has to listen to a German Shepherd and an umbrella cockatoo in the backgroand.
He's just got to just keep editing out like dog and parrot. It's not a great sound, but we got to soldier on.
Where were you when, in this morning of us thinking, oh, we should record today? I mean, it's not like there's going to be a whole lot of news in the motorsport world. Suddenly, everything happened.
So much happened that we're having to split this week's shows into two shows.
Nothing like waking up to nothing like waking up to an ESPN report that Lewis Hamilton has the vid.
We'll get to that later.
Rona. We'll get to that. Like, if anything, you probably have already heard about it by the time this goes out, because we'll be doing that episode live on the Motorsport 101 YouTube channel in front of everybody. Although by the time this one goes up, it's probably already happened, which totally isn't confusing to say, but we'll figure it out anyway.
Yeah.
Follow us on social media and all that, and all that good stuff. I'll get to that in the meantime.
Yes.
Episode 281. Shut up. Episode 281 will be all about MotoGP season finale in Portimao, rounding off what's been, well, one of the craziest motorsporting seasons you could ever possibly imagine. And we had a couple last-minute stings in the tail to wrap up 2 World Championships and a homecoming for Miguel. Oh my god, I didn't realise how big a celebrity he actually is in Portugal, Oliveira. More on that later. But we got a whole heap of stuff to get through, some era-defining stuff, some transfer news, all that good stuff in the next 40 minutes or so. In the meantime, places you can find this, we're on youtube.com, of course, /Motorsport 101. If you're watching us on there, hi. If you're not, subscribe over there, hit the bell, and when you get notifications when our next videos are up. We're on facebook.com /Motorsport 101. We're on Twitter at Motorsport_101. And our personal handles are on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're not, they're at Harrison101HD, at RJ O'Connell, at Ryan Eric King, and at CBuckley917. So that's fun. You can follow us as well on our website, motorsport101.com. And if you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon. Patreon.com /Motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our audio shows, $10 to upgrade to the video version and get access to the supporters club of our Discord server where you can listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded. So, without further ado, let's get in to the Portuguese Grand Prix at Portimao. So, MotoGP's season finale, and in a shocking turn of events, Miguel Oliveira was channeled by all 0 home fans in attendance. Yes, sudden uprise in COVID cases, unfortunately. Last minute, fans were not allowed to show up for this one. Sad face. He brought home his first MotoGP pole position right at the end of Q2 ahead of Frankie Morbidelli and Jack Miller on the front row. The other big story, brand new world champion Joan Mir stuck down in 20th as the Blue Brand struggled in their bid for the Triple Crown. The race got underway and Miguel Oliveira took out and immediately started some super fast lap times to break off a 2-second lead. Meanwhile, Joan Mir aggressively passed and may or may not have accidentally popped out Francisco Bagnaiy's collarbone on the third corner of the race. Sadly, the latter ended up retiring at the end of the first lap with a mechanical problem anyway. Don't worry, kids. He's fine, I promise. The race itself was a remarkably calm affair at the front, with Miggy increasing his lead to 4 seconds, Morbidelli and Miller resuming where they left off at Valencia, and then an almighty scrap in the third group between... And this is a list that doesn't is not just exclusive to, but also includes both LCRs, yes, including Cal Crutchlow, both Espargaro brothers, yes, including the one on the Aprilia, both Repsol Hondas, Johann Zarco, and surprisingly, all the other Yamahas for the minor points. Joan Mir had to retire with 10 laps to go due to an electrical problem, and Alex Rins struggling on Portimao's undulating layouts and bumps led to a 15th place finish, gifting the manufacturer's title away at the final round. Miggy would win comfortably with a Grand Slam, pole, win, fastest lap, and led every lap over the line. His second win of 2020. Jack Miller took some revenge over Frankie to get second in his final race for Pramac, but not only that, it also confirmed Ducati as manufacturers champions. Their first title in MotoGP in 13 years. Frankie took third to take the championship runner-up spot. Andrea Dovizioso finished 6th in what might be his final MotoGP race, and Cal Crutchlow dropped to 13th after some errors in the end of what will probably be his final MotoGP race. Also, I unfortunately, in my script, in my haste, forgot to mention Tito Rabat, who sadly was the last bike over the line by 1,000th of a second over Mika Kallio. When it rains, it pours. Bad luck, Tito. Now, I'll get out of the way. The final championship standings for the year. Joan Mir with 171 points. Morbidelli with 158 in second. Rins on 139. Dovi beat Paul Espargaro on countback. They both had 135. Maverick beat Miller on countback, both on 132. Fabio Quartararo had 127. Oliveira 9th on 125 after that last-minute win. Taka Nakagami 116 in the top 10. Binder was the Rookie of the Year in the end with 11th with 87 points. Woo, King, come on. It's something. You got Rookie of the Year. I mean, there was only 2 competitors, but you know, it counts, right? It's something. Petrix in 12th on 78, then Johann Zarco on 77, Alex Marquez 74, Valentino Rossi on 66, Bagnaia on 47, Alicia Espargaro on 42, Crutchlow on 32, Stefan Bradl on 27. Yes, he finished 7th in this last race. Don't ask me how. Ikuda Quona with 27, Bradley Smith with 12, Tito Rabat with 20, and Michele Pirro, the world's fastest policeman, whoop whoop, was the last of the point scorers with 4. It's still really strange to see Marc Marquez's name second from the bottom of the championship with no finished races to his name, but that's barely scratching the surface of an absolutely wild 2020.
I didn't want it to end!
Oh my god, this... All good things must come to an end.
Speaking of good things...
I mean, you have to say, 14 races in 18 weeks, it all just went so fast. And I don't envy anyone that was part of the travelling circus all year long. A lot of triple headers, a lot of crams, a lot of crunch, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of lot of busted asses, to say the least. I know one of our own, Lewis, was on the social media team all year long. A salute to our pal Lewis as always. I know how hard he's had to work. Fantastic work. We're all really proud of him. He's even though he's a total degenerate, but we love him anyway. So salute to all those guys and everyone that was able to put this year together. I know Carmelo Esperanto got a standing ovation from the IRTA before the last race even started. Social distancing be damned, and all of that. They were all right on top of each other wearing masks, but they clapped him anyway. Way to go, Dorna. That protocol holding up all the way till the very end, but. We got to talk a little bit about Miguel Oliveira. My word, what a performance that was!
What's the level beyond Omega beat him down? Whatever it is, that's what he did. He started. He got the lead. Ultra Instinct beat him down. He got the lead. Yeah, he was never headed. He rode away.
Simple as that, really.
Yeah.
God,
there's nothing else to say. I will say,
track.
He certainly didn't stop trying. He had the ass end of that bike hanging out pretty much every corner all race.
It wouldn't be Miggy if it wasn't that. He did that in Moto 2 all the time. Like him and Binder were the tail slide brothers. But yeah, I don't exaggerate. This was a Grand Slam victory. And we know we love counting them in F1, not so much in MotoGP. But it was pole, the win, the fastest lap of the race, and he led every single lap going over the line. Won by 3.1 seconds. It could have easily been a whole lot more if he wanted to, but he was dialing it down towards the end. I didn't even realise as well just how big a deal this is for the sport, because, like, I have a couple of friends from Portugal, and there's one sporting name that obviously stands out above all others in the country, and that's clearly Bernardo Silva, the Man City midfielder. And some footballer called Cristiano, apparently he's quite big over there. Like,
yeah, I heard he was quite good.
Decent footballer.
Just a little bit. I mean, he's no Eusebio. But
no, close. He's close. But I didn't even realise Miguel Oliveira was travelling with armed security back and forth from the track all 3 days. He is a big deal in Portugal. I did not realise just how much a big deal he is, because I was just told, look, Portugal, we ain't got that many sporting stars, so when we do have them, we put them on a plinth in our country. And Miguel is royalty back home in Portugal, and he got a home Grand Prix win, and the only gutting thing about it was that there was no fans there to cheer him on directly, because, like I said, they had a sudden spike of COVID cases right around the time Formula One race there about a month prior.
Yeah.
And in between, they had to announce that, look, public events are a no-go, so there was no fans in the house. It's a real shame for Miggy on that one, that he didn't get any fans to see.
I don't know, he might be thankful. He would have got mobbed after that performance.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I was about to say, that was going to be a mad scene. Like, it would replicate...
like Valentino winning at Misano.
Yeah, there'll be crowd surfing all the way through like one of those concerts. It's like when Chip tried to crowd surf and everyone just braced themselves for impact. It's just like also, yeah. I didn't mention this in the script, but I feel like I have to mention it. Did everybody see the beef between Jorge Lorenzo and Cal Crutchlow?
Oh yes. My goodness, that was wonderful. Let's get into it.
We at Motorsport 101 are big fans of fresh beef.
Fresh beef.
Made when you order. And man, Jorge and Cal were putting in orders.
To add some context to this, or to add some spice, as Chris Eubank might say, to this prime beef. Jorge Lorenzo, as you know, lost his role as a tester for Yamaha earlier in the season. It was announced last week that Cal Crutchlow would replace him with the Yamaha testing setup in Europe, formerly Jonas Volger's old job as well. Yamaha's riders like Rossi has pushed big to have more of a testing standpoint in Europe as opposed to Japan. I think it's more relevant for them winning championships. So Crutchlow got that role. Jorge Lorenzo was not best pleased about this, and he took to Twitter, and I believe the quote he used was something along the lines of, "It's like digging for bronze and ignoring coal by talking about hiring Crutchlow over him.
Yeah, it's like exchanging gold for bronze. So he wasn't that harsh to Cal Crutchlow, to call him cold.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, so he basically said, I'm basically just way better than him, and like, this was going to get thrown to Cal in a press conference somewhere, especially when one of the best names in the business from journalism standpoint, Simon Patterson, is a very close friend of Cal's, so of course Simon offered up the question, did you see Lorenzo's comments? And Cal was, by his standards, quite remarkably diplomatic and said, look, I've got no beef with Jorge. All I just think of him is that he's a 5-time world champion, but he will tell you a lot that he is a 5-time world champion in one of the most remarkably subtle disses about his ego I could have possibly imagined. I'll have you know,
I am a 5-time motorcycle world champion.
You hear that, Scott Goodyear? I won the 1998 Indianapolis 500. But Dre, it gets better because Lorenzo returns serve.
He did return serve, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he said.
I've got it here. He said on social media, saying that I'm not a good tester, saying that the Earth is square. Which, by the way, if you would like to email us, members of the Square Earth movement, you can reach us at.
Well, I'll have you know on this. I'll have you know, on this game right here, on this Sega Genesis game, the Earth is indeed made of pixels. It has edges.
When is Kyrie going to join the Square Earth movement? Flat Earth movement's dead now. We're all
he ends
square.
Up being the best player on his NBA team, which ain't happening anytime soon.
Off this tangent, though, if we talk about numbers, it's a fact that after I left both teams, the number of wins per season decreased. About Cal, he has been one of the riders with less wins and more crashes in the last 10 years. I think he'll be a good tester to test how hard is the bike.
I'm dead. The thing is here. Neither of them are exactly. Here's the thing, Skip. Neither of them are exactly wrong about each other.
No, that's
the best part.
It's a remarkably accurate dig because you're absolutely right. Jorge Lorenzo has an enormous ego. Anyone and their mother will tell you. Lorenzo is a bit of a diva, to say the least. He has egos the size of his testes. They're enormous. And he doesn't mind telling people that he's a 5-time champion over and over again. He was on Instagram during this weekend saying...
Let's remember, this is the guy who left Yamaha at the end of 2016 because they didn't feel his title was celebrated enough. You can read all about that title in Andre Harrison's own The Kick.
Oh, I didn't even have to plug it. How kind of you, Cam. Isn't that lovely? Available at all good Amazon retailers. But, yes, but it's very true.
It's a known quantity. Jorge Lorenzo has a hell of an ego.
He does.
Cal Crutchlow crashes a lot.
He does. It's like they both went for the really obvious jugulars. Yes, Lorenzo is an egomaniac. Yes, he's extremely outspoken. Sometimes he's right to be outspoken. Other times he ends up looking stupid. Like me, only a bit more likable. He also took to Instagram. He put his all-time likes list up there. That drew some controversy when he put himself at number 5. He's probably right, to be fair, but still. He also talked about how he doesn't like Jack Miller, but didn't want to get into the reasons why. He said, one day you'll know, basically, which is just, was he writing a book or something? I don't know. But Lorenzo was ultra sassy on Twitter. Crutchlow was a bit too focused on his own retirement, or pseudo-retirement, to really focus on a war of words with Jorge Lorenzo. But let's just say, if you follow him on Twitter or Instagram, you will get a lot of interesting chat, to say the least. But we love a good beef on this show, and that was hilarious to watch over the last few days and whatnot.
We love Digital Fight Club.
Yeah, we love Digital Fight Club. It's fun because we're lacking real fights in the midst of COVID. Everyone's keeping their distance, but we can still have beef over a keyboard, and that's always
John
fun.
Jones and Daniel Cormier taught us this a long time ago. I'm gonna talk about Suzuki because, man, they had a hell of a time to have their worst race of 2020.
Oh yeah, it's a good thing that. It's a good thing Suzuki wrapped things up when they did.
Before Johan Mir wrapped up the title, before his bike broke down, and after he broke up the title, but before his bike broke down, he was just banging into everybody. He had us worried that he was going to be popping Pecco Bagnaia's collarbone, and then Alex Rins just has a clunker of a day. And out of all this, Ducati wins the Constructors' Championship. With a bunch of guys that got 4s and 5s from our good friend Simon Patterson's end-of-season review.
Yeah, Ducati did a whole lot of fuck all year, with the exception of Austria, and comes away with the manufacturer's crown. You can't
2
write
wins
this
all
shit.
year. 2 wins all year. And they won the manufacturer's title.
Suzuki didn't have much more.
Yeah. Suzuki only had, 2 wins for the year themselves? And
but they have 2 bikes.
Yeah.
They just have 2 bikes. Ducati has more bikes than any other constructor. If anybody, the suits of Ducati ought to be given, everybody at Pramac, steak dinner, champagne, back rub.
Yeah, you just got to take the... For next year, they're just going to take the fairings off the factory bikes, put them on the Pramac bikes, and then put the Pecco and Jack's numbers on them.
I wrote a 6,000+ word season review on the whole, on team by team on motorsport101.com if you want to read it, but there was a key part in Dovi's section that I mentioned that the factory Ducati was not the top Ducati on the board 6 out of the 14 races this year. 3 of them were from Jack Miller, 1 of them from Pecco Bagnaia, and twice from Johann Zarco on last year's Ducati.
Out of all of this, Pramac didn't win a race. That's stunning. They still have
nine dudes won a Grand Prix. 9 dudes won a Grand Prix this year, and Pramac was not one of them, and they had 4 second places.
And they still won the Constructors.
Their first major title since Casey Stoner in 2007.
You can't write this. You can't write this shit.
And then you look behind them. Suzuki, Yamaha, and KTM covered by 4 points for second, third, and fourth. KTM was 4 points away from second.
Yamaha wouldn't have been within that 4 points, but they decided to cheat.
They did.
And Honda, Honda were just happy to be here. Happy to only potentially ruin the career of one rider this year.
Indeed, because it's one of those things that won't get talked about as much. Honda's first winless season since 1981.
Jeez.
Which was the last year they were trying to get the NR500 working. And the NR500 had oval pistons. Look them up. They're weird. And it didn't work.
No, for full clarification, Ducati ended up winning the manufacturer's title by 17 points. It wasn't even close. 17 points with 221. Yamaha had 204. Yeah.
Honda, since their last winless season, switched to 2-stroke technology, and then were forced to switch back to 4-stroke technology in the early 2000s.
Yep.
It's been that long.
They were 77 points off the top manufacturer. 2 podium finishes for the whole year, both courtesy of Alex Marquez. Yamaha, who won 6 Grand Prix, actually won 7 Grand Prix all year, was 17 back because of their 50-point penalty they took for Jerez. Suzuki was third with 202. KTM had around 200. That's always a nice number. Honda had 144 and a prettier bottom of the pile on 51. So yeah, Ducati, it's their first major title since Casey Stoner won the Riders' Championship in 2007. Remember that year when the Ducati was a blunderbuss and was like 5 miles an hour faster than the field? Good times.
I missed it.
Shout out. I mean, we got to talk a little bit about some of the guys departing as well, because this is probably going to be the final Grand Prix for Andrea Dovizioso, Cal Crutchlow, and most likely Tito Rabat as well. We're going to miss Rabat, certainly. Very, very nice guy. A talented rider who was often just cursed with not great equipment, and then that horror crash at Silverstone that effectively ended his top flight career. He's never been quite the same since then. I hope another series gives him a shot at something there, because I think he's a bit better than what his GP career made out he was. Let's not forget, he had one of the greatest intermediate class seasons ever when he was at Mark VDS to win the Moto2 title. It was a record that only stood for 1 year because Zarco beat it a year later, but it was a phenomenal season nonetheless. You know, a world champ in his own right. And a few words from Dovi, guys, because, I mean, that one, this one is significant. I mean, we're arguably losing Marquez's strongest rival in what is an incredible field. No, I don't think it is either. Like, Marquez's arguably greatest rival of the last half-decade is not going to be on the grid next year, and it's going to be pretty weird not seeing Dovi there for the first time in, God, I want to say 13 years in the top flight. Right. I think he debuted in 06, I want to say, so...
Either 06 or 07.
08.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even without a title, one of the defining riders of an era. And it's frustrating to watch because you think he has unfinished business, but it just looks like he's been dealt the raw deal with how the internal power struggle has gone on at Ducati. Kind of like another Italian team we talk about quite a lot on this show. I do hope that this isn't the end of Dovi in MotoGP.
I hope so,
because
too.
even in his advanced age, if he finds the right team to come in with somewhere, I'd love to see him back.
He went from being the wrong Andrea being retained by Ducati to being 3 years in a row the closest competition that Marc Marquez has ever faced consistently since he stepped up to MotoGP.
And that's just it. He's been the only person who could on any given weekend give Marquez something to think about. And you can't say that for a lot of this grid.
5-2 record against Marc Marquez in last lap dogfights in his top flight career. He had his number the majority of the time. I think Thailand in 2018 was the only significant time Marquez
It took Marquez years to finally. It helped turn Marquez into what he is now. It caused him to steel himself in bike-to-bike combat. And, I mean, he put it pretty well. Aprilia did ask, and he said, I don't need that at this stage of my career.
Yeah. It takes a man with a lot of chutzpah to walk away from a factory Ducati seat, and a seat that we know is good enough to challenge for championships. You know, according to the sport right now, the best bike in the field. You know,
I don't know about all that, Chief.
But, you know, statistically, you know, points-wise, you know, they're the reigning manufacturers' champions, and he's walked away from them. You know, he didn't want to take a pay cut. He wanted more developmental hands on the bike. Ducati said no.
He wanted more respect.
Their heels in. And Dovi was like, I don't need this. And he walked away. And that takes some stones. It takes a pair of steel ones to do that. And as Cam's alluded to, the only consistent threat Marc Marquez has had in the top flight over the last half-decade. He's a phenomenal rider. You would never think that Dovi, half a decade ago, would become the rider that he is today. 14,
not only that,
14 was the top flight, but, you know. Yeah, okay.
You know, the last couple years, and his form over them, we came into the season after Mark got hurt. Mm-hmm. There was a very good reason why we picked Andrea as the runaway title favorite.
Yeah, and for a while, it looked like he was going to win this title out of spite to his soon-to-be ex-employers.
And unfortunately, with the way the factory duck was this year, it just didn't play out that way.
I will still respect him forever for having unemployed blazing across his butt cheeks on his leathers towards the end of 2020. I wanna ask though, just transitioning to Cal, what's his legacy in MotoGP gonna be? Because he has 3 pretty surprising wins on satellite teams, kind of a spotty record over 10 years, but he's done more than any British rider has in the top flight in quite some time.
Overall, he's... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, he's done a very good job as the UK's ambassador for MotoGP. It doesn't get seen so much to you guys. Obviously, he could be an American, but he does a lot of collaborative work with BT Sport. He gets a lot of their commercial time. He's a big deal back in the UK for bike racing because he's our most established big name and has been for quite a long time. I do worry for this sport's British future after Cal hangs up the gloves because we haven't really got anybody else on that sort of level afterwards. I mentioned it before. Sam Lowes is probably not going to come back in the top flight. He's had his time. Bradley Smith is clinging onto a top flight seat for dear life. Jake Dixon, maybe. Next year in Moto2, we'll see how he develops, but we haven't really got anybody else on the ladder significantly high up that might be our flag bearer. And this is a big deal because Dorna likes being multicultural. It wants a significant Brit up there. I mean, they got lucky they lucked into Zarco and Quartararo because they were dying for a French audience. And they got Quartararo and Zarco, and the UK's lacked that big next name to come through. And Cal, for me, one of the true gritty, and I know it sounds corny because we always associate Brits with grit and determination, but that's
industrious, he's hard-working.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Right, proper rider, innit?
And I don't want to sound so cliche to say that, but that's exactly who Cal is. He's a grafter. He always has been. He has had that win it or bin it mentality, and we like that. That resonates with that. We like in this country we have a saying, and the saying is God loves a trier, and that's always been Cal Crutchlow, and he was really. And I will say this for free. He will probably be the last big example of a World Superbike guy jumping over the ladder and making it work. Him and Petrux were the last of their kind, really, in that sense. I don't think that's ever really going to happen again. He came over as a Supersport champion, walked into a difficult tech-free setup, a difficult situation for Brits in the sport in general because James Tozen had just hung it up at age 30 due to the wrist problems he's had, which he still suffers to with this day.
Pour one out for Ben Spies, too. All that potential, all those shoulder surgeries.
Indeed. He was a grafter. He always tried hard. He would always have phenomenal perseverance and incredible pain tolerance, I have to be honest. And
I gotta say, man's had shoulder ligaments going during races this year and he's still toughing it out.
Yeah.
I still remember in 2013 he broke his ankle in qualifying. I had to start from the back at Silverstone, and he came up through the field and finished in 6th.
Don't mention
rider.
Cal's broken ankles, because I'm just remembering the fucking the X-rays now.
Yeah.
And I ate 20 minutes ago. No.
And
another thing as well with Cal, I'd say he's also over the last few years probably the best satellite rider in the whole field. Yeah. Across the last few years. He's one of the only people who's really made it work consistently up there, fighting with
outside the SRT guys, of course. If we're throwing out SRT over the last couple of years,
SRT is the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah,
exactly.
Even going back before that,
and there is always an intrinsic value in GP with independent success because he's one of the embodiments of the sport's continued development to improve the independent situation in the sport. It's a big part of the reason Cal got those 3 wins, but it also proved he can run with the very, very best this sport has to offer. And he can win, and he's been one of the guys that's really flourished from the sport being more competitive. And he's also taken a lot of flack for not beating the Honda drum on a constant basis and trying to develop the bike, even though...
I'd argue that he might be the biggest victim of, let's call a spade, HRC getting very lazy with the bike's chassis development when you have Marc Marquez to brute force all your problems.
But then when you don't have Marc Marquez to brute force your way out of all those problems, well...
You stink! You fucking stink! And Honda stunk this year until really the last 4 or 5 races of the year, when they were forced to get off their ass and start making the bike better.
Indeed. And, and not to be too corny, he's a funny motherfucker. He always has been. He's always good for a quote. He's good for a soundbite. He does not mince his words. And in a world where more and more motorsport dudes are becoming PR lapdogs and will just say the company lines, Cal was always willing to give you his time, give you his peace of mind. And I look forward to him being able to spend more time with his partner and daughter Willow. That's why he's now going to be a part-time tester. So I wish all 3 of them the very, very best. They're 3 good dudes in their own right, and I hope whatever comes next for them, they take with the typical aplomb they have in their careers to date as well. They've been great assets to the sport, and we'll see how they go in the near future. Couple of loose ends to tie up in the top flight and some other news real quick. Aprilia did confirm their last seat in the end. We
need to talk about Aprilia for a couple minutes.
Nobody wants this ride.
They were getting roasted by people you hadn't even heard of.
Hey, I've heard of Joe Roberts.
Joe Robert, I love what he said. I want to win, and I think my best chance is in Moto 2 with my team.
Joe Roberts, who has not won a top flight motor race, so he's not won a Moto 2 race,
looked like
by the way.
No, since the first round of the season, hasn't even looked like winning one.
Nope, and yet he turned around and said, I want to win, and my best chance of doing so is staying in Moto 2 rather than joining Aprilia. So that deal that was going to be announced as Joe Roberts, Roberts turned them down and the deal fell through.
Can you realize, we Americans have been starving for top flight Grand Prix representation.
Oh yeah.
And I am happy that he turned them down.
Yeah, didn't Chaz Davies turn him down too?
There were rumours about Chaz. There was rumours that Dorna was pushing hard because, again, they want a Brit in the top flight. There's no guarantee there'll be one next year. I'll get to why in a minute. But there was rumours about Chaz because he was still a free agent until a couple of days ago. We'll talk about his future very quickly in a second.
Davi, we mentioned, basically said, I don't need that at this stage of my career.
No, he doesn't.
Nobody wants that poison chalice.
Yes. So it turns out Aprilia is like, well, we got no one else left. Boys, have at it. So they've announced that Lorenzo Savadori and Bradley Smith will be in a series of winter testing duels, and whoever does the best over winter testing will get the Aprilia seat for next year. The loser stays on as a test rider. It's a reality TV contest.
Yeah, holy shit, it's the Roush Racing Gong Show all over again.
2 Aprilia enter, 1 Aprilia leave.
That is F1 esports legend Lorenzo Savadori you're talking about.
This year's Italian Superbike winner. As soon as I announced that, the look on King's face just said it all. It was just like, what are they doing? Like, it just,
oh Lord, this is a mess.
Yeah, Lorenzo Savadori and Bradley Smith will literally be going head-to-head for the last seat in MotoGP in 2021. So obviously we probably won't find out who gets that seat till maybe February next year when we get to the Sepang test. Good luck figuring that one out. So yeah, Lorenzo Savadori and Brad Smith going head-to-head. A couple of bits of World Superbike news to wrap up as well. Chaz Davies was rumoured for that Aprilia seat. He's not coming back to the MotoGP ladder. He's going to the Go 11 Ducati team for next year. Great hire for the Go 11 team as far as I'm concerned. That's about as good a rider as you can get on a Panigale. Very, very nice work for them. Chaz will be a contender on that bike, no doubt in my mind whatsoever. We're getting 2 satellite BMWs in the field next year on independent running. One for the returning Eugene Laverty, and the other one for Jonas Volger, who's back full-time next year.
Great stuff.
delighted for Jonas to be back in the paddock full time. He was in MotoGP, had a very solid rookie season 3 years ago, but he had a very mysterious illness that put him out of racing for a good year and a half. He was a tester for the Yamaha factory team at one point, but he made a wildcard appearance at Catalunya earlier this year in World Superbikes, and he'll be racing full-time under the BMW satellite team, which is great news. So delighted for Jonas, and great to see him back full-time as well. So, fellas, should we wrap up these other two championships?
Yes, because MotoGP was decided, but there were still 2 more titles on the line. The Intercontinental MotoGP Championship, the Moto2 Championship, and the European Moto3 title. Or is it the 24/7 Championship, or is that Moto E? I don't know. Somebody brought out an ice cream stand for one of these, and that's great.
Divas title, butterfly belt. But let's get into Moto 2, and if anyone knows their basketball around here, I will call this the Austin Rivers race. And if anyone knows why, it pertains to one Sam Lowes, and I get into this. What I said here is that Remy Gardner took pole position in Moto 2. He was in a one-on-one fight with Luca Marini for the win all the way through. Enea Bastianini, who was leading the championship, was a little bit further back in the second group, fighting Marco Bezzecchi, Augusto Fernandez, Jorge Martin, and Joe Roberts, fighting for the last spot on the podium. Now, as a result of that, Gardner Marini took off. Lowes was desperate to stay with the leading two, and he rode his heart out. I mean, his wrist, like it turns out, he had actually broken 2 bones in his wrist when he had that nasty Valencia free practice crash the week prior when the bike landed on his arm. It broke 2 bones in his wrist, and he was in basically an immense amount of pain the entire weekend. He didn't run in warm-up practice because he was like, I've got to save my wrist for the race, is what he basically had to say, because any excuse he had not to run, he didn't run because he was trying to protect that wrist. He rode his heart out. He was in visible pain when he got off the bike at the end of the race, but it was a superhuman ride for him to come in third. I'll happily say that. I've been watching Sam for a long time. That's the best I've ever seen Sam Lowes ride a motorcycle.
That was the ride of a champion.
Indeed.
But,
it's a shame it didn't turn out for him in the end. I mean, it's a good friend of mine, Kev, on Twitter just said, that's it. We can never slander Sam Lowes ever again. It's like Austin Rivers when he played with that broken nose and his blood all over his jersey, but he kept fighting, and people respected that. It's the Sam Lowes moment now for him, where it's like, I can't slander this man ever again. He earned a lot of people's respect.
It's the Jorge Lorenzo broken collarbone ride at Assen.
Yeah,
this race was wild. I caught up on some of the highlights again. Fabio Di Gianantonio is a very lucky man.
He was indeed. He had a nasty incident there as well, and Gardner and Marini got into a great fight. Gardner hit Marini with about 3 laps to go, took the front, and then didn't look back. Basically, he got his first ever Grand Prix victory, his first win in Moto 2. Dad Wayne delighted on Twitter, and also another little bit of minor history in the sense of, Gardner was the 26th different winner across all 3 classes this year, a all-time MotoGP record across the 3 major classes.
Gotta love
26. 26 different winners we had across the classes this year. Gardner was number 26. An unbelievably unpredictable season across the board, you could certainly say. He beat Marini over the line, and it was Sam Lowes in third. Bastianini followed Bez home in 5th to become the Moto2 world champion by 9 points. Shout out to his helmet designers. Normally these things are all gold. They break out the gold for a world champion. Not Enea. No. He went beast mode and got the green out. Lots of fluorescent green, including
and a number 1 vinyl across his visor.
Whose idea was that? Who thought that was a bright idea? It was literally a giant 1 embossed over the front, including the visor, and I'm like, you can't see. Like, it was just. Oh, it was hilarious. But,
this vinyl is dangerous and inconvenient, but I am the Moto2 world champion. I knew Cam would love that. We're going to watch that at some point.
We're going to watch Talladega Nights one day, we promise you.
That wasn't even the wildest celebration prop of all time once we get to Moto3. I still can't get over it.
We'll get to that very, very shortly, but yes, Bastianini ends up winning the World Championship. Before he comes up, let's not forget he'll be riding for the Avintia team in MotoGP next season as Moto2 champion with 205 points. Luca Marini beat Sam Lowe's on countback. Lowe's didn't even get the runner-up spot. He lost on countback to Marini. That's just brutal. That's just a sucker punch.
And nobody even knows that Luca Marini is Valentino Rossi's half-brother.
How will they ever know?
I didn't even know. I just found out.
They never tell us this.
Never. Marini on 196, Lowe's on 196, Marco Bezzecchi, he'll be probably the favourite for next season on 184 points in 4th. Jorge Martin on 160, don't forget he's moving up as well with Pramac. And Remy Gardner jumped all the way up to 6th on that final round with 135 points to his name, his best season in Moto2, and he'll be joining KTM next year, certainly one to watch for 2021, I would say. So congrats to Bastianini, and congrats as well to one Albert Arenas, who made a bit of a haulix of this. It was a nail-biter of a Moto3 race. One of the best races of the season.
I'm glad I woke up early to watch this one.
It was well worth it. Forget the winner. Raul Fernandez won by about 6 seconds. He completely took off. I'm sitting here now thinking, did Fernandez do the right thing to move up now? Because with his sort of pace, he might just completely curb stomp everybody in Moto3 next year. But nope, he's moving up to the Red Bull KTM team in Moto2. That was announced over the course of the weekend, so he's moving up to be the other Red Bull KTM alongside Remy Gardner. So, big move for Raul Fernandez on that one, but he won by about 6 seconds. Dennis Foggia was second, despite irresponsible riding and picking up 2 long lap penalties. He still finished in second. That's how much pace the Leopards were carrying over the course of this race. It was ridiculous. Jeremy Alcoba was third. The main title fight was at the front. Arbolino was in the second group, trying to hang on. He went from 28th to 5th, Arbolino, over the course of the race. He gave it everything to try and steal the title. Couldn't quite do it. Ogura was 8th in no man's land, and Arenas ran out of tyres at the end of the race. He slipped all the way down. He got punched up a little bit by the Moto3 field. Dropped all the way to 12th, but just limped over the line to win the Moto3 world title by 4 points in the end, over Ogura second on 170, and Arbolino, who again rode like an absolute madman and picks up the bronze medal for his trouble.
Tony Arbolino could have won this if not for a COVID case that he didn't even have.
Yeah. If you remember the first Aragon round, he had to self-isolate because someone on his flight from Paris tested positive for COVID-19, and he was a victim of close contact. He tested negative, but he had to self-isolate anyway because that was Spain's rules. So, unfortunately, Arbolino missed the round. He missed the championship by 4 points. Kinda says it all, really. But he'll be ruining that. Not for too long, though, because he'll be in Moto2 next year with the Dynavolt team, so keep an eye on that one. He's replacing Thomas Luthi. Luthi's leaving them to go to SAG. It's all a little bit of a reshuffle because he's replacing Gardner, who's going to KTM, etc., etc. Because Martin's that's how the little chain of events rolls back with each other. So yeah, first, second, third, and fourth in the championship are all moving. I think actually the top 5 are, because I think Vietti's moving up to be Bez's teammate at Sky next year. Also, the top 5 are all moving up in Moto3 next year. John McPhee, if you don't win this title next year, I swear to God, like
he never will.
like,
he never will.
We're giving you to Gibraltar, John McPhee, if you don't win this title. I didn't want to close the segment without talking about the fact that Albert Arenas' team had an actual goddamn ice cream stand.
Yes, the Albert Arenas. Apparently, his nickname is the Ice Cream Man. I do not know how. I have to ask Lewis about how this came about because I've never heard of this one before. But when they pulled into the paddock at the end of the race, there was an ice cream truck waiting for him, which is just beautiful. Very incredibly creative celebration.
And this had real ice cream in it.
Yes, gelato for everybody.
Oh, that was my favorite thing. Like, I've seen, like, over-the-top celebration props before, but this takes it doesn't take the cake, it takes the whole double scoop.
It doesn't. It does indeed.
This joke is going too far. Please, God, end the show.
I mean, this is going to be our final MotoGP show of 2020, apart from maybe obviously talk at the award show we'll do at Christmas. But this is it. This is the end of 2020, and gentlemen, I'm going to go around the horn here for a minute and just some final thoughts on the year we've just had, and what a phenomenal year it was.
Okay. Everything I have to say has already been said. There's no superlatives left.
Yeah, I'm glad KTM has finally got some.
We didn't really make a big deal of it. King, another KTM W.
Yeah. I was surprised KTM not got one win this year. Not got multiple wins across
3.
Both teams. The end of the season, honestly, really exhausting. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's glad that 2020 is over. And I'm excited for 2021. I'm sure Marc Marquez is glad for 2021.
No kidding.
We didn't actually mention that. That's kind of a big thing that came out in the last couple weeks. Marc might need a third surgery on that arm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to worry a little.
The problem is that if he has that third surgery, rumored downtime is half a year. He would miss the start of next season as well.
I just want to get back into 2020 for a bit. I think it was really eye-opening to see just how much Honda was relying on Marc Marquez's sheer talent to power them through these difficult times. It was astonishing to see how Yamaha were so up and down and inconsistent, and all those down periods are just they just came at the worst possible times to where they actually lost their damn sponsor. It was amazing to see Johan Mir transform into this marvel of consistency. It was awesome to see all these great breakout performances from Mir and from Franco Morbidelli and from Miguel Oliveira and Brad Binder, because Brad Ritter was on it. Ooh, goodness, at Brno, he was absolutely on it. We saw a legitimate all-timer Styria just for that finish alone.
Oh, I mean, what the greatest finish in the sport's history, in my opinion.
One of, easily.
Yeah, I'd say Rossi Lorenzo at Catalunya 09 is the only thing that can top that for a finale. That was one of the best races you will ever see. And yeah, to follow on from what RJ had to say, it's all to fit the theme of COVID-19. It's almost like this season will almost live in a bubble in the unique circumstances of our time in sport. And you look at all the recent MotoGP seasons we've had before it, and this is such an outlier. It's fascinating to break down and look at.
Every narrative that was written before the season started, not only did they get burned up, the day that Marc Marquez's arm got broken, they continued to be shoveled into the fire every single race.
Yeah, and we went into this season for the first time genuinely not knowing what was going to happen week on week. Even the double headers. The second doubleheader tended to be a lot more different from the first one. Everything changed. We went like, for example, we look at Aragon. it was Rins versus Marquez, but not the Marquez you were thinking of in the first time round. And the second one, Morbidelli dominates and wins by a mile. It was a fascinating season. And again, as
single weekend, we think we know who the new title favorite is going to be until we don't. The script flips.
And we didn't until really 3 or 4 races to the end of the season.
It was that first race at Valencia. Mir winning at Valencia was the ultimate title-stealing sucker punch on the field because everybody else struggled, and Mir finally cracked the glass ceiling and won the race he should have won in Styria earlier in the year. It was, there's stories up and down the field from Yamaha and winning half the races on the calendar but having nothing to show for it. The cheating scandal in their camp. Maverick Vinales' season falling apart. Quartararo's season's falling apart. Valentino Rossi going almost 2 months before finishing a Grand Prix and saying goodbye to the factory team after 15 years of service with them.
And Franco Morbidelli flipping every expectation on its head.
On last year's Yamaha, winning the championship runner-up spot and nearly stealing it. No one in their right mind would have thought Frankie Morbidelli would take such a massive leap forward.
Let's list off our top 5 in the championship.
Mir, Morbidelli, Rins, and then what? It was Paul Espargaro and Andrea Dovizioso, 4th and 5th.
Exactly as predicted. Oh,
You run it down the field. Suzuki, the team that came back only 6 years ago in that random wildcard appearance, Randy DePinier.
They
we all laughed at them.
2 years ago. They reeked.
Even 2 years ago, they still had fundamental problems. Double champions this year, riders champion, team champion, and they've now put together the gold standard of teams in this sport. Ducati somehow winning the Manufacturers' Championship. I said on my season review, Jack Miller will be getting a lot of biscotti for Christmas. I guarantee you that.
Ducati's worst year in the top flight since 2015.
But yet also their best year in years
it doesn't
because they
make
won a
sense.
championship.
You see what I'm saying? It makes no sense.
KTM winning 3 races this year with both different teams.
This 2020 MotoGP season made no goddamn sense. It was
right.
wonderful. It made me feel every kind of emotion I could as a racing fan.
And we didn't even get to, the resurgence of Johan Zarco. Ducati betting against Andrea Dovizioso, and he almost turned it back up at them. Danilo Petrucci in a lame duck year, having a masterclass at Le Mans. We didn't even get to, Takaki Nakagami becoming a marvel of consistency coming off of shoulder surgery. Just so much happened.
Story after everywhere you look, there's some kind of story.
And surely with all of this chaos, surely Aprilia... Well, Aprilia's still Aprilia.
Aprilia was the one constant. Constantly bad.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. And I'm looking forward to 2021 for a minute. It is this year was such an outlier. Goodness only knows what's going to happen, because the last time we saw Marc Marquez, he completely curb-stomped this exact same field a year and a half ago.
Literally the greatest season in the history of Grand Prix motorcycle racing. And then was not classified the next year on a DNF.
Yeah, and that's
how
going to be the
quickly
most
these things change.
And that's how fascinating it's going to be next year. Where is a rejuvenated Marquez? If he's fully fit in 2021, where is he going to fit into this incredible outlier of a season where we're gonna have no idea on where the field is when we get to Qatar next March, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating to find out what happens. And just before we go, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's listened to our MotoGP coverage all through 2020. I'm glad. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope we were able to do it some justice. I know some of the Bike Live fans came over. Lewis, I hope I did it justice for you, my friend, leading the way. It's still not quite the same without you, but it's still a pleasure to captain this ship and carry the name. And
I'll say it was a whole lot of fun to cover this year.
Oh God, I will be hard pushed to ever have one. Like, for me, I've been doing this show 6 years now. This was the most fun season I've ever covered as a motorsport journalist. Ever. In Formula 1, IndyCar, MotoGP, anything else that's been on the show. This is number one as far as I'm concerned. It's been the greatest MotoGP season you could have ever imagined.
I'd go one further. I would say this might be the most fun season I've ever seen as a motorsport fan.
Wow. It's in the conversation.
It's a hard fight between this, obviously Formula 1 in 2012.
Yeah.
The golden years of the WEC. It was just incredible.
Yeah, what an incredible season we had, and I hope you enjoyed it just as much as we did. But, yeah, that'll just about do it for episode 281 of Motorsport 101. You know what? This is actually such a creative and such a nice place. I'm not even going to bother with the social media. You know where to find us. I've been Dre Harrison. They've been RJ O'Connell, Ryan Eric King, and Cam Buckley. Until next time, sayonara.
Let battle conclude, y'all.
Bye!
Hashtag
Honda Redemption Tour.
Now.
Honda Redemption Tour 2021, baby!
Someone get Cam off the narcotics.